Hello, sports fans. Welcome to WCSU Sports Zone, the newest show shot right here at Western Connecticut State University. My name is Patrick Higgins, and alongside me is my co-host, Chris Walker. We're going to take you through the world of professional sports and also go over how the WCSU men's and women's basketball teams did this season.
Just a reminder, you can catch the Sports Zone on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. on 91.7 FM WXCI, as well as on Charter Cable Channel 192 on Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. and on Saturdays at 4:30 p.m.
We're going to start off the show this week by going over how the men's basketball team did in the Little East Conference quarterfinal round against Keene State. We pick up with the action in the first half, and the Colonials were active early. Kendall Marquez would miss the three, but Selden is there for the board and dished it to Britter for the layup, and he gets fouled. Britter would make the free throw afterwards. Keene State would answer back with a fast break and a slam dunk. Can I get a witness from the congregation?
Amen.
There you go. In the second half, the back and forth would continue. Britter would muscle down low and get the lay-in, but once again, Keene would answer back. Look at that cross, the drive, and the lay-in. He would make the free throws, and Keene State would start to pull ahead. And in the last seconds of the game, WestCon attempts to tie it up as Selden hits the three. But time expires, and the Colonials would lose 101-99. All right, Chris, let's get you into the conversation. So overall, how did you think the men did this season?
Well, Pat, very interesting with the men this year. They won their first 7 straight games and 8 out of their first 9.
Hey, they were on a hot streak.
For sure. They were scoring 100 points a game, high 90s in a few others, and they continued this way for much of until the middle of the season. They played Keene State, lost 91-78, and that was really the start of the bad string of games they had, Pat. They just did not seem to have any scoring depth or chemistry at all.
I got to agree with you. That Keene State game back in January probably was the start of the downfall for the men's team. And I also think they should have had that game against Eastern Connecticut about 3 weeks ago where they lost 70-60. They needed that win because that would have been a nice quality win to put on their resume, which maybe could have squeaked them into the NCAA tournament, but they couldn't do it. And I have to agree with you. They didn't score a lot of points, and non-scoring in this league will get you nowhere.
Right.
But I'd hate to tell you I told you so, but I sort of told you so, bud.
That's all right.
But overall, Chris, who are they losing this offseason?
Well, actually, they're losing 5 key players. They are losing Claudie Cassius, Tony Selden, Phil Quantate, Jimmy Lusant, and Louis Britter, who is their powerful center. So all 5 guys are key parts of this team that they will miss.
They're going to miss Jimmy Lusant because he gives them 6 points, and they're also going to miss Phil Quantate, who gives them 5 points. But they have some very good players coming back. Kendall Marquez, the team's leading scorer, is scoring 12 points a game. He scored 12 points a game this season. So he's coming back. Who else is coming back?
Well, they've got Jeremiah Washington, who was their second leading point scorer with about 10.5 points per game. So they've got a hopeful future, but it certainly will hurt them losing all those guys.
Oh, it's really going to hurt them because you lose 6 and 5 points out of your lineup. But when you have Kendall Marquez scoring 12 a game and he's only going to get better, that's going to really help you in the upcoming future for the men's team.
Definitely.
Now let's move on to the girls. How did you think they did overall?
They had a much better year than the men did.
Oh, yes, they did.
There was a lot more team chemistry, a lot more scoring in general from all layers of their team. Even the bench players came up big in a lot of situations.
Oh, they did. They finished the season 16-10. They lost in the first round of the Little East Conference tournament against UMass Boston. That was okay. I thought they were going to maybe go a little farther, but I think they're ultimately still going to make the NCAA tournament. I honestly believe that they're going to be probably a 5th seed or higher. What about you?
I agree with you, actually, Pat. You can't really say they would be a 3rd seed or a 2nd seed, but 5th or 4th definitely seems like a good place for them to be, or fair at least.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe were even a 7th seed, to be honest
Right.
with you. I would say, like I said, 5th and up, but they're only losing 1 player this offseason, too. Who's that?
Caroline Braza, of course, and she's hurt right now, as she's been much of her career, unfortunately.
That is true. That is very true.
And luckily, with her leaving, even though she is the top scorer, they're used to playing without her, and it probably won't hurt them as badly.
She gave them 15 points this year. 15 points per game. That's a lot of points in NCAA play. You got to admit that.
Sure.
But next year, they're going to have Colleen Kosker, who scores 8 points a game, come back. And you also are going to have Emily Dobson, who gives you 8 points as well. You got a bright future, in my opinion, for the girls or women's team. You have a very bright future.
Sure.
And like we said, they're going to make the NCAA tournament, most definitely, and they'll probably be a 5th seed or higher. So I think they have aspirations to go far in the tournament. What do you think?
I agree with you, Pat. You know, they had a good enough season that you could say, all right, this team's going to go far in the playoffs. They can make a run. You know, once you get to the tournament, it's a brand new season. So anything's possible.
It is a season, but losing Breza in that 15 points is going to hurt them. I don't know if they'll win an NCAA championship, but I could see them getting decently far into the NCAA tournament.
That would be great to see.
In another story from the NCAA, the Syracuse men's basketball program has been handed down sanctions by the NCAA for not monitoring and controlling their basketball program. The NCAA said that the violations, which were self-reported by Syracuse and dated back to 2001, included academic misconduct, extra benefits, failure to follow the drug testing policy, and impermissible booster activity. Under the penalties, head coach Jim Boeheim will be suspended for 9 ACC conference games next season, and the NCAA took away 12 scholarships from the men's basketball program. Syracuse's penalties also include a 5-year probation and the vacating of all wins in which ineligible men's basketball student athletes played during the 2004 to 2007 and the 2010 to 2012 seasons. In addition, the NCAA agreed to accept the university's decision for the team not to participate in any postseason games this season, including the ACC tournament. Other violations included impermissible academic assistance and services, Boeheim's failure to promote an atmosphere of compliance and monitor his staff, and the school's lack of control over its athletic program. Boeheim is expected to appeal his suspension. Now, Chris, I'm going to ask you, does this taint the Syracuse men's basketball program, and does it taint Jim Boeheim's future at Syracuse?
Well, I'm going to have to go with no and no, Pat, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
For maybe a few more weeks and maybe a month until the season's completely over, sure, this might taint the image of Syracuse, but nobody's going to remember this because everybody wants to go to Syracuse that's going to play basketball in college. It's known. That's a school you want to go to. And as far as Boeheim, no, he's been there for, 39 seasons.
It's been a long time.
And he might as well be there for 39 more. He's going to be just fine.
I have to agree with you. It's not going to hurt the Syracuse men's basketball team. They're one of the best programs in the nation, Chris. They're one of the best. And if you're a top recruit, you want to go to Syracuse. One, you get to play in that huge arena. It's amazing to even look at.
Yeah,
and also, you're under Jim Boeheim, one of the best basketball coaches in college of all time. Of all time. You have to believe that. And also, he vacates over 100 wins with his penalties, which take him from 2nd on the all-time wins list to 6th. Okay, look what happened with Joe Paterno, everybody. Joe Paterno got his wins back years down the road. But I think they'll be fine. If you're a high school basketball player, you want to go play for Jim Boeheim. So I really don't think that this is even going to hurt them in the slightest.
Right. And the thing with the wins that takes him down to 6th place, it doesn't really matter because he got those wins. It's just the team that caused them to lose them. So they're kind of still there almost.
I think he's going to win his suspension, too. He's going to suspend that 9-game ACC suspension. He's going to get off that, I think.
I think so.
There's no way he will keep that, in my opinion. So that wraps up our first segment of the show, everybody. When we come back, we're going to go over 3 high school basketball players that you need to keep on your radar. You're watching WCSU Sports Zone Shot right here at Western Connecticut State University.
What did I get myself into?
Is this really worth it?
I told them I wanted to stop drinking.
Welcome back to the Sports Zone. Just a reminder, you can catch the Sports Zones on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. on WXCI, channel 91.7 FM, and on the Charter Cable channel 192 on Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. and on Saturdays at 4:30 p.m. Now we're going to get into our second segment, which is our player focus. We're going to go over 3 high school basketball players that you need to keep on your radar. We start with Donovan Mitchell, a 6'3" combo guard coming out of Brewster Academy. ESPN has him ranked as the 43rd overall player in the nation. He is a physically imposing, strong, and athletic guard, one of the most athletically gifted players in the nation, in a class that features some outstanding talent like Malik Newman and Antonio Blakely. This kid loves contact, and he can finish with either hand at the rim. And his mid-range game is also outstanding. He can even get to the three-point line and sink some threes. More of a scorer at this stage of his game, but look for him to develop into a more complete guard as he matures. And what better place to do that than at Louisville with Rick Pitino.
Connecticut, we have a big man. Coach Ali is looking to continue the winning trend at UConn as he adds power forward Stephen Enoch out of St. Thomas More. Enoch is the ESPN 100's 99th ranked player, 6'10", very long arms, good shot blocker, as well as a rebounder. A perfect complement to point guard Jalen Adams, who leads the Huskies recruiting class. The Huskies will look to Adams and Enoch to contribute, with the departure of several key players, including Ryan Boatwright.
Rounding out our focus, we check out Jared Wilson Frame. Frame is a bully. He likes to muscle defenders. He is also a very smart basketball player and plays with a lot of composure. He can drive to the basket with either hand and has range out to 23 feet. The number 3 ranked player in the state has offers from Connecticut, Georgia, Providence, Rutgers, and VCU. So Chris, where do you think Frame ends up?
Well, Pat, I think Frame ends up at Rutgers, as they're the only school from this list that doesn't have a deep selection of small forwards or shooting guards. He would actually be the only one in this year's class. And that just means more playing time. And Pat, anybody likes playing time.
You're most certainly right, Chris. And that wraps up our player focus for this week, everybody. Coming up next, Ray Allen isn't playing in the NBA this season, and some breaking news from NFL free agency. You guys are watching WCSU Sports Zone, shot right here at Western Connecticut State University. Welcome back to the Sports Zone. Just a reminder, you can catch the Sports Zone on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. on WXCI channel 91.7 FM and on the Charter Cable channel 192 on Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. and on Saturdays at 4:30 p.m. Now for a story from the NBA. Ray Allen has officially announced that he will not play in the NBA this season, but stopped short of declaring himself retired. Over the past several months, Allen has taken time to deliberate and has decided to take the remainder of this season as well as the upcoming offseason to reassess his options, spend time with his family, and determine if he will play next season. According to Allen's agent, Jim Tanner, Ray has received a large interest from a number of NBA teams throughout this season. They will continue to communicate with interested teams as Allen makes a decision whether or not he wants to continue to compete in the NBA. Before the All-Star break, Allen said that he would decide where he would play for this season. Allen never did make any commitments, but it was reported that numerous teams, especially the Cleveland Cavaliers, were making contract offers and in some cases leaving roster spots open for Allen. In his career, he has averaged 18.9 points and made 2,973 three-pointers while winning 2 NBA championships. It looks like the guessing game is still on whether Ray Allen will return to the NBA. Here in the Sports Zone, we want to give you coverage of all major sports. So we're going to talk about some soccer. I'm joined in the studio by our director and guest analyst of the day, John Murray. How you doing today, bud?
Good. It's good to be on this side of things.
Oh, I like that answer, my friend. So right now, what's the top news from the soccer world?
Well, definitely the big focus has to be on the UEFA Champions League right now. It's a huge European tournament once a year, and as of the 17th and 18th of February, we just got down to the final 16 knockout round. It's great because you get to see a lot of great inter-league play of all the different European leagues.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. For somebody that might not be a soccer fan, let's just say for me, for example, which we all know I'm not a huge soccer fan.
Fair enough.
What are the teams to watch for?
I think it's impossible not to look out for Barcelona and Real Madrid right now. Honestly, the lineups are amazing on both of them. And Real Madrid is our defending champion from the Champions League last year, so they're doing great. They absolutely dominated the group play before the round of 16 started, so they're looking great. And Barcelona, that lineup is just fantastic.
So let's talk about the lineups. What players should we be looking for?
I mean, you can't, when you're talking about Barcelona, you can't not talk about that offense. You have Lionel Messi, who's hands down one of the best players in the world. And you've got Neymar there too, who he'll run circles around anyone any day and just get you those goals. But they picked up Luis Suarez this year, and honestly, I got to watch the first game against Manchester City in the round of 16 they played, and he saved them. He proved he's not there just to have people scared that he's going to bite them. He scored 2 beautiful goals, and that's how they won 2-1 against them.
Oh, that's good to hear. Now let's move to Real Madrid.
Yeah.
What players should we be watching for on that team?
Obviously, you can't talk about Real Madrid without talking about Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
cannot.
especially after he just won the Ballon d'Or for the 2nd year in a row. You can't not talk about him. He's playing amazingly, and there's no reason he didn't win Player of the Year. But he's got a great supporting cast. Really strong midfield. Toni Kroos is fantastic. James Rodriguez. He is out with an injury right now, but he's just been dynamite. And then you've got Sami Khedira too. He just came off an injury, but together that midfield is just really great for setting up Ronaldo.
And we've seen injuries really hurt teams in the past. For example, in the World Cup this year,
Exactly.
Neymar was out, and Brazil's chances really depleted after that.
The team just fell apart.
Oh, it did. Now, we talked about Barcelona.
Yeah.
We talked about Real Madrid. Are there any other teams we should be looking for?
Honestly, Paris Saint-Germain has been playing fantastically right now. Again, it's another team where they've got a really strong lineup, and at the head of it, they've got Zlatan Ibrahimovic, he's just a beast. I mean, he's 6'5", and then give him an inch or 2 for man bun, and he's
man bun.
Yeah,
the man bun does make him look a little
He's got
more
the
scarier.
man bun,
Yeah.
but he's just massive, and it's just they've been setting up beautiful crosses, and he just puts them in because he just towers over people. But you've got Thiago Silva. It's a great team too. They've been playing well, and they were only a couple points behind. They were in the same group as Barcelona, and they were only a couple points behind Barcelona at the end of the group.
And you can see how tall he is. We saw on the
Yeah.
screen him towering over Messi.
Towering over Messi, yeah.
So that he is the man to look for, too.
He's a great player to watch.
Well, John, I want to thank you for coming in the studio.
No, of course. It was a lot of fun.
Hope to have you in here again.
Yeah, definitely.
The National Hockey League scoring race is starting to heat up. The leader, John Tavares of the New York Islanders. He scores and he assists on countless other goals, and he's your quintessential hockey player. With John Tavares' 72 points, he is leading his New York Islanders into first place right now in the Metropolitan Division. But he's got some stiff competition. Trailing him by only 3 points at 69 are Alex Ovechkin and Nicklas Backstrom, both of the Washington Capitals. And right behind them, with 67 points, are Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, both of the Pittsburgh Penguins. John Tavares is also in the conversation for the Hart Trophy, which is the league's most valuable player award. Carey Price of the Montreal Canadiens, their starting goalie, has been putting up great numbers as well, and he is Tavares' opponent for that. Now, the Islanders lead the Metropolitan Division, which leads us to our look at the NHL standings with the playoffs just a month away. In first place in the Metropolitan Division, the Islanders have a 3-point lead on the New York Rangers, and the Pittsburgh Penguins are trailing them by just 1 point with 86. In the Atlantic Division, the Montreal Canadiens lead with 90 points, trailed by Tampa Bay and Detroit with 88 and 85 points respectively. In the Western Conference, the Nashville Predators lead the Central Division with 91 points, and the St. Louis Blues and Chicago Blackhawks trail them, but only by 4 points. In the Pacific Division, the Anaheim Ducks have 91 points, and they lead that division, and the Vancouver Canucks and Calgary Flames are in second and third. The interesting part of the standings is the wild card, and in the West, Minnesota and Winnipeg have that spot, the 1 and 2 slots, but Los Angeles and San Jose are only 3 and 4 points respectively out of a playoff spot. And finally, in the East wild card, the Washington Capitals and Boston Bruins are in control of the wild card spots, but the Florida Panthers and Ottawa Senators are only 4 points out respectively.
Now from the MLB. The decision whether to send Los Angeles Angels outfielder Josh Hamilton to rehabilitation will come down to an arbitrator after a 4-person disciplinary committee deadlocked on a decision. The Commissioner's Office and the MLB Players Association each appointed a lawyer and a physician to the committee, which determines whether the drug policy was violated and a course of treatment. The committee deadlocked on the course of treatment, which now calls for the involvement of an arbitrator. Hamilton's relapse involved alcohol and a one-time use of cocaine in the offseason, and that when Hamilton realized a drug test, which is administered 3 times a week, would come out positive, he self-reported his relapse to the MLB. Hamilton has a history of substance abuse problems. He was suspended from baseball from February 2004 to June 2006 for issues related to cocaine and alcohol addiction. One of the conditions of Hamilton's reinstatement in 2006 was that he undergo drug testing 3 times per week. The arbitrator's decision on a rehabilitation program will affect the $25 million he is owed this season. He would be paid his full salary for 30 days and half his salary for the next 30 days, if in rehab. He would not be paid if suspended and not in treatment. In addition, MLB is deciding whether to classify Hamilton as a 4th-time offender, which could increase a suspension from 50 to 75 games to at least 1 full season. Only time will tell if Major League Baseball will suspend Hamilton or send him to rehabilitation. Now, Chris, we have some breaking news in the studio. There have been a lot of deals completed in the past, I would say, what, 4 hours?
Yeah.
Jimmy Graham, everybody, has been traded to Seattle Seahawks for center Matt Unger and a 2015 first-round draft pick. Also, the QB swap of the century, in my opinion. Nick Foles of the Philadelphia Eagles has been traded for Sam Bradford of the St. Louis Rams, and the Lions get Nagata, and the 49ers have signed Torrey Smith to a $40 million contract. Chris, out of all those I've just gone through, what do you think is the most important?
Well, that's a lot to ingest for a span of 4 hours.
4 hours, it just popped up on all our phones here.
I know. And I do have to say the biggest one is the QB swap, what you call the swap of the century.
I can't believe it. They're not high-style quarterbacks or
Right.
high-profile quarterbacks, but nobody saw this coming.
No, not at all.
Nobody saw this coming.
They're 2 good quarterbacks, and it's certainly I don't know if it's even, because I think Foles is a little bit better, but it's definitely a big deal, biggest deal so far.
I have to say, too, because Sam Bradford's coming off an ACL tear.
Right, and that's always a question mark if you could come off of an injury, especially like an ACL like that.
And I have to say, I don't think Sam Bradford's that good. He was great at Oklahoma until Tim Tebow beat him in the national championship game. Then he comes out, and he just gets hurt a little too much, and he doesn't put up the prolific numbers I thought he would coming out of college.
Right, Foles has definitely proven to be the better quarterback out of the 2 of them.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely, which I can't believe they got rid of him. Because like we said, if they're thinking about bringing in Marcus Mariota, I thought they'd want him to learn from Foles, not Sam Bradford.
Right.
So this is going to be interesting to see, too, what they do with Mariota after they've done this QB swap.
But remember, they've also got Mark Sanchez still.
They do. The thing I'm thinking, are they going to trade Sam Bradford up to the Jets to get that 6th overall pick?
Possibly.
I'm not sure. Do you even think the Jets want to have him?
I'm not sure. It's just a weird situation because of the fact that Mark Sanchez is there, and he's proven finally that he's good.
I have to say something on that, too. He has proven that he's a decent quarterback in the league.
Yes.
He played very well for Philadelphia over the last stretch of games. I was highly impressed by Mark Sanchez.
And those are big games. They needed to win each one of them, and he did just that.
Oh, of course. Now, my personal opinion, Chris, I got to go against you. Jimmy Graham to Seattle. I can't believe they got Jimmy Graham.
I know.
I can't believe the Seahawks gave up Jimmy Graham.
I know. Why
Jimmy
would they do
Graham
that?
is one of the best players, and we all know the best tight end in the National Football League. They gave up Max Unger and a first-round draft pick in 2015 to get Jimmy Graham. I take that all day.
Sure.
Yeah, Max Unger is a great center. I'm not going to get wrong with any of that.
No.
And they're going to have, I believe, the 31st pick in the 2015 draft, so it's not that bad. But you give up a first-round pick. But Jimmy Graham,
You
just gave a new target to Russell Wilson, which they don't have a true number 1. They don't.
Right.
Doug Baldwin is fantastic. I love Doug Baldwin, but he's not a true number 1 receiver. He's like Eric Decker. He's not going to be a number 1 receiver in the NFL. He's going to be a number 2. Now you have Jimmy Graham, which is going to open up Doug Baldwin even more. You can have Jimmy Graham line up on the outside as a receiver and in on the line as a tight end. He is a dynamic player. This trade is fantastic. And also, Play action with Marshawn Lynch, passes to Graham in the end zone.
Can't go wrong.
I'm telling you right now, everybody, I am telling you right now, this is going to make Seattle the #1 contender for the Super Bowl this year.
He said it.
I'm letting everybody, I did say it.
He
Let
said it.
everybody know. Call up everybody. They're going to be the overall favorite for the Super Bowl this year.
I don't know how you could disagree with that, really.
You
With
can't.
what you
You
just said,
can't
you made a
disagree
great
with that,
case
Chris.
for it.
You can't. But that was all of the new trades that just happened. Just a reminder, Seahawks have acquired Jimmy Graham from the good old New Orleans Saints for Max Unger and a 2015 first-round pick. And in another trade like we just talked about, Sam Bradford was traded to Philadelphia for Nick Foles. So that big trades have happened over the past couple hours. Big trades.
When you think of jail, who do you see serving time?
A thief.
A murderer.
A drug dealer.
A kidnapper.
An embezzler.
If you serve minors, you could serve time.
All I did was let her drink.
Make the right decision.
Welcome, everybody, to the Higgins Cabana. We got some trees, we got some lights. We're in Higgins Hall with Patrick Higgins. This is the Higgins Cabana. We're going to take a change of pace right now and talk about a major U.S. sporting organization. That's right, I'm talking about the MMA. They are now performance-enhancing drug testing in the MMA organization. And in the studio right now, our correspondent, our analyst, our TD, our producer, our other director, Ian Foss. Ian, how you doing today, bud?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me, Pat.
No problem, buddy. So let me get the backstory. What is going on here?
So the UFC, a major sports organization that specializes in MMA, is having new policy changes, and they are major, Pat. We're talking complete PED revamping. They've had a lot of problems in the past, especially in such a violent sport, where athletes are forced under pressure to use drugs to help advance their own talents. And so the president now is trying to impose stricter regulations, and he's had a lot of trouble in the past. Dana White, president of the UFC, has disbanded PED regulations because of how much they were a failure before. And now it's drastically because of pressure, of course, of their Zuffa conglomerate organization that they need to clean up their act. They really want to move towards a more professional sports image. They really want to be known as a premier American sport.
So, Ian, what about performance-enhancing drugs in the MMA?
Well, this is where the real policies come into play, Pat. Anderson the Spider Silva, a huge name, was recently caught using performance-enhancing drugs, specifically anabolic steroids. He was using them for therapeutic reasons because he broke his tibula in a famous fight against Chris Weidman.
Like Andy Pettitte did in baseball.
Exactly, but that's still illegal. He was still under the influence of these drugs when he went into his last fight with Nick Diaz, who granted failed for marijuana use, again, another illicit substance, but it's about holding your fighters accountable. And the thing about the new PED regulations is that they really almost seem, I'm not sure where they're coming from. There's certain fighters in the league that are approved for things such as testosterone replacement therapy that are allowed these exceptions and exemptions from this sort of rules. So you have fighters approved by the Nevada State Commission are Chael Sonnen and Frank Mir are among them, and those are both fighters that have tested positive in the past for steroid use. Yet you have a fighter like Vitor Belfort, a Brazilian, who is approved for testosterone therapy replacement in Brazilian because he's unable to produce testosterone anymore. And when he comes over, he's not approved by the Nevada State Commission. So he's actually taking on middleweight champion Chris Weidman without doing any testosterone replacement. He's not going to have a single lick of testosterone in his body as he's going into his big fight.
Well, good luck for him.
So it's huge commissions. I think they have a lot of room that they really need to work out in this organization before they can put these into play. But the UFC is taking a huge step in moving itself towards a legitimate organization it always strives to be. And I think this is a very, very positive step in the right direction.
Oh, I think so too. But Ian, we're running out of time. I want to have you back on the next show to talk about this too. But for Ian Foss, I'm Patrick Higgins. We'll get into this next time on the Sports Zone. And that wraps up our show. Thank you all for watching WCSU Sports Zone, shot right here at Western Connecticut State University.
We will be back in 2 weeks bringing you all the news from the world of sports.
For my co-host Chris Walker, I'm Patrick Higgins. Have a great weekend, everybody.